What do you say, Mr. Edgeworth? Is this testimony important? This may initially appear to put me at a disadvantage, but I can't see any other leads at the moment. Your Honor, I would like these new statements to be added to the testimony. Ah, Mouse Edgeworth. If you want to hang yourself, you need only to ask. I'll gladly lend you my whip. Witness! Add that statement to your testimony. No problem. Now that you mention it, Iris didn't have a hood on. You are sure about that? Yes. After all, we always wear the same clothes. I don't mean because we're poor, you understand, it's our style. Yes, that's it. There's absolutely no need to explain yourself. Anyway, she looked different from normal, so that really stuck out. Like me holding a whippet puppy instead of my whip. What? At least then it might bite you and not someone else. Iris didn't have a hood on, I'm sure of it. Very well. Now please tell us about the victim, eh? Mystic Elise was staying in the corner room which faces out onto the courtyard. The room the victim was staying in overlooked the courtyard, correct? Which means the victim's room was on the second floor. No, Hazakura Temple is a single-story building, but the mountain itself slopes downwards, which elevates the main gate side of the temple and the guest rooms in the back to about the height of a two-story building. I see. And the victim was staying in one of these elevated rooms, correct? Yes, I should know. I'm the one who carries her things to her room after all. The stabbing I saw must have occurred after she was pushed out of the window. What makes you so sure of all this? It's just like I told you earlier. I heard a noise from the courtyard, okay? Thump, just like that. You're one smart sister, I'll give you that. The autopsy report states that the victim's body was covered in bruises, indicating a fall from around 10 feet in height. It appears that the witness was not mistaken then. Yep, I'm more than just a pretty face, especially in winter. I'm a woman of faith after all. There's only 2 of them working there. What's wrong, Miles Edgeworth? No snappy comeback remark? It doesn't feel like she's lying. This is very powerful testimony too. She claims to have seen the instant in which the defendant stabbed the victim. There are only 2 things I can believe in right now. My client, Iris, and my own abilities as a defense attorney. Alright, so... I don't have anything obvious that I can think of. Let me just check. By 11 o'clock the snow has stopped. There were lightning strikes. Photo of Elise. Rang lights out bell at 10 in the room until murder was discovered. The issue is that the statue is holding the sword. Which... if Iris stabbed her, how could she then, like, wedge the sword back into the statue's hand? Doesn't really make sense. Alright, I'm gonna try that. I can't think of anything else that doesn't work. Did I load a save? Iris didn't have a hood on. No, that's not it. Iris didn't have her hood on. The apparent murder weapon has the victim's blood and the suspect's fingerprints. Carried by Elise when she was alive. She didn't say anything about lightning. I'm gonna press all of it again, just in case there's a backwards thing. 20 minutes, 15 minutes from the bridge to the temple. At 10 she came back. It takes 20 minutes. So she had like a 40-minute shower. A bath, I mean. Heard a noise. It's very quiet. This is the second time the witness has testified to seeing the defendant. But some doubt remains in these claims. The murderer who stabbed the victim with the sword. Try to recall as clearly as you can. Overlooking the courtyard, single-story building. I heard a noise from the courtyard. Okay, wait a minute. How if... The stabbing I saw must have occurred after she was pushed out of a window. Heard a noise, took a look, and she was being stabbed. Okay, so the problem is that the person who pushed her can't be the same person who stabbed her. Because from what she said, she heard the thump, she looked out, and the stabbing was already happening. So whoever stabbed her from her room, like whoever pushed her from her room, if it's the same person, they would have jumped down after her, which is, you know, which would be another a thump. So somebody would have pushed her, and a second person would run down and stab her. Oh, and a second person would be down already to stab her. Now, how do I talk about that? How do I talk about that? And where do I present it? Let me just try and present this here. Impressive logic. That's what I like to say anyway. Oh, please do. My brain is something else, especially in winter. However, I think you are overlooking one thing. Miss Von Karma, would you be so kind as to take another look at the autopsy report? The autopsy report? The victim did fall from a height of 10 feet. However, this fall was after she was killed. Oh, was that it? Which I don't know how they could know that. After death. That wasn't what I was thinking, but okay. Ah! That's right, it says after death right here. How would they know? How would they know? Anyway, I don't know how they know. The scene the witness claims to have seen is contradictory. If the defendant stabbed and killed the victim there in the courtyard, how did the victim then go on to take a 10-foot fall? Order! The victim was killed and then fell. If that is the case, then the victim must have been killed in her room. Don't you agree? That is the logical conclusion. Yes, that's right. The victim must have been stabbed by the defendant in her own room. And she was then thrown out of the window down in the courtyard below. Were there any signs of a struggle in Miss Donham's room? She was stabbed with a sword that would leave a bloodstain, wouldn't you agree? Well, Miss Von Karma, was there any blood? Ah! No traces of blood were found in the victim's room. Your whip has just caused traces of blood to be found on my glorious playoff beard. However, if there was no blood in the room, then your claim— Ah! I'm sure there's no need for me to go over this, as I'm sure your honor is well aware of when a stab wound produces the most blood. When it produces the most blood, very little blood is actually lost at the moment of a blade's insertion. If you want to talk about when the most blood would be lost from a body, that would be when the blade is removed. Indeed, with the weapon still in place, it acts like a lid on the wound. That's true. With the weapon still in the body, there wouldn't be much bleeding. A perfectly reasonable line of thinking. We have come to a conclusion then. The victim was thrown out of the window with the sword still in place. If that's the case, then we go to my point, which is that Iris couldn't be the one who stabbed her because she was already in the courtyard. This removes all of the contradictions. No, it doesn't. Order! I must admit that this is a probable version of events. I'd expect no less from Franziska von Karma. She locates and takes control of every vital point. It seems that we need a clearer testimony from the witness. Remove all supposition on your part and tell us only the facts, please. Witness, please remain standing on the crate. Don't go selling me short now. The weight of winter snow has bent me out of shape, especially my back and my mood. Sister, please, give us your testimony. I will give you a vigorous massage once we are finished here. You'll probably break your back. With the whip? Oh, boy. Alright, alright. Further details. When I looked across at the scene, the sword was already in place. Thinking about it now, I didn't actually see her stab Mystic Elise. I've never seen so much blood before. That's when I fainted. You can't blame me, can you? And when I awoke, Mystic Amy was stabbing Mystic Elise through the back! This all confirms Miss Von Karma's theory. No, it doesn't. Von Karma strive for nothing but perfection. No, it's... what the fuck? It doesn't confirm anything. How did... If If Iris stabbed her in her room, how is she also down in the courtyard, 10 feet down in the courtyard, immediately? And also, how did she wedge the sword back into the statue's hand? Putting together such facts is nothing for me. You should know that, Mouse Edgeworth. Yeah, you're dreaming, Franziska. Perfection is an impossibility, Franziska von Karma. And I'm here to teach you just that. Didn't she already learn? Didn't Phoenix already teach her like 3 times? When I looked across at the scene, the sword was already in place. At that time, was the victim bleeding? Well, I was very shocked to be seeing all this, of course, so I'm not entirely sure. But I don't think I saw any blood, not then. You don't think you saw any blood, not then? I'm sure that you didn't. The weapon was acting as a plug in the wound. In any case, let's be clear on one very important point. Did you actually see the instant in which the victim was stabbed? Thinking about it now, I didn't actually see her stab Mystic Elise. Think carefully, this is very important. It's Iris we're talking about here. I'm thinking for all I'm worth. No, when I looked over, the sword was already in Mystic Elise's body. It might not be conclusive, but this testimony supports her theory. The victim was stabbed in her room and then dropped onto the courtyard. I think this proves it rather well, Mouse Edgeworth. I've never seen so much blood before. So you're saying that you saw the victim's blood? That's right. Some of it had splattered onto Iris too. When the defendant was arrested, she was meditating in her room, and her blood-flecked clothing was neatly folded in the corner. Wow, real? What? Her clothes were blood-flecked as well? That seems quite conclusive to me. What should I do? Press this point further? Going back to your previous statements, you said that you saw little bleeding when the victim was stabbed. But now you say you saw the victim bleeding. Well, I say that what I saw is what I saw. What did you see? Maybe I didn't see the poor woman get stabbed, but I saw the girl pull the sword out of her, plain as day. You saw the girl pull the sword out of her? Pulling the sword out? Well, it wasn't exactly pulling. It was more like it came out. Witness! You will add this statement to your testimony. Oh, was that important? More important than you can imagine. I saw the instant in which the blade plunged into the hilt was smoothly drawn out. What? Plunged into the hilt? Are you high? Are you... How... First of all, there's only blood up to there. How do you plunge this thing to the hilt and then pull it smoothly out? Look at this, look at the shape of this thing. Smoothly, you say? You're saying you saw the sword smoothly slide out. That's right. The whole thing happened right next to the gold statue of Mystic Amy. Mystic Elise was on the ground and Iris was stooped over her. The sword was buried up to the hilt. When Iris stood up, the sword in her hand just slid out of Mystic Elise's body. What? It slid out from that gaping wound. Ah! It goes without saying that if the sword was removed, there would be bleeding. Nothing out of place here. Is that really the case? I can't help but feel that something about this testimony is very out of place. That something which couldn't possibly have happened appears to have happened. I've never seen so much blood before. Was the bleeding caused by the killer removing the sword? No mistaking it, I remember it all clear as day. Don't you think that's a bit odd? What do you mean, Mouse Edgeworth? Why would the killer pull out the sword? What? If all she wanted to do was place the weapon in the hand of the gold statue, then there was no reason to remove it from the body. All that would have accomplished is causing the victim to bleed unnecessarily. Your thoughts, Miss Von Karma? That's... Indeed, it is strange, now that you mention it. I'm going to need to find an answer to this mystery too. Anyway, the witness saw something terrible. So what did you do after that, witness? That's when I fainted. You can't blame me, can you? Now, on to what the killer did next. You saw none of it, correct? Well, I was unconscious. How long were you out for? I don't know. 10, maybe 20 minutes? A young man with a very prickly looking head woke me up. By stepping on me, actually. I'm not sure I like that method of resuscitation. Well, I wasn't asking for mouth-to-mouth or anything of the sort. But I would have welcomed a more gentle awakening right about then, let me tell you. I shall have words with the offender personally. What did you see upon awakening? And when I woke, Mystic Amy was stabbing Mystic Elise through the back! By Mystic Amy, you are referring to the golden statue, correct? Just stabbing someone with the shichishito, a sacred treasure, is terrible enough. But to then make Mystic Amy hold the blade? Truly a heinous, despicable crime. It is easy to despise something, anyone can do it. However, there is something that cannot be done so easily. Whatever it is, I'm sure it's doubly hard for you. Anyway, what's the problem? Exactly why would the killer set up this gruesome scene? Can anyone explain the reasoning behind that? No, I don't think I can. There isn't always a logical reason why someone acts, or behind why someone acts. That's true, so true. In early spring, for example, I often find myself... There isn't always. That phrase might come in handy someday. There are too many unnatural elements in this case. Why was it necessary to use the shichishito from the Emi statue as a weapon? Why was the weapon ultimately placed back in the hands of the statue? If I can expose the flaws in this testimony, perhaps then I will begin to find the truth. Alright, so... the fact that the sword came out smoothly. How the hell do you pull this out smoothly? Sister Bikini, you are a reliable witness. At least, I'd like to think so. But there are too many contradictions here. What do you mean? You make it sound as though I'm a liar! But, you're a handsome young man, so I'll forgive you. What contradictions are you talking about? In the scene that the witness claims to have seen, the weapon was thrust up to its hilt into the victim, which I don't know how you do that with that sword. Furthermore, the killer withdrew the weapon smoothly from the body. However, both of these are complete impossibilities. What do you mean? Please explain your... Explain yourself. To start with, do you think it would be possible to stab someone to the hilt with this? No matter how I look at the defendant, she doesn't appear strong enough for that. Doesn't appear? What meaningless dribble. I too may appear to be weak and frail. I mean, you are. But I can crush men under my heel and make them weep, should I so choose. Go on. Are you gonna step on me? The objection stands. I wept a little back there, I must admit. That isn't the only issue here. If this sword was truly stabbed into the body up to the hilt, well, just look at all the branches on it. It certainly wouldn't come out smoothly. We also have the problem of the amount of bleeding. It's true that when a blade is left in the body, it acts as a plug of sorts. However, when the weapon is shaped like this, it is an entirely different story. The wound would be too large for the blade to completely stop the bleeding. That's nothing more than conjecture. In reality, the victim was stabbed with a shichishito. Even a weapon of this nature may still sometimes slide out smoothly and may still sometimes stop the blood loss. Not if it's up to the hilt. Are you high? I'm not finished. There is still one more conclusive contradiction. You've still got one. You've still got more? This one is simple. If this sword really was thrust all the way to the hilt, why is there only blood on the tip of it? Ah! If this witness is telling the truth, then there should be blood along the entire length of the sword. No! Order! Ah! Bravo, Miles Edgeworth. Raising this many contradictions from a single piece of evidence. All the other attorneys I know could manage maybe one, if that. But what does all this mean? You have proven contradictions regarding the murder weapon, but having come this far, there can only be one answer. And that is, the weapon used to kill the victim was not the shichishito. What? A foolishly foolish idea born from the foolish mind of a foolhardy foolish fool. Let's examine this again. What was it that made us think this sword was the murder weapon? Well, it's because Mystic Amy was holding it. Exactly. However, if you reflect on this, that is the only basis we have to assume such a thing. The impression left by the scene was just too strong, and that's what influenced us. It influenced us to believe that the shichishito was the murder weapon,